Hello, Route 66 fellow travelers. We're just moving right along. I don't know, but if I started a trip from Chicago to Southern California and it took me a year, I think I'd have get a new car. But we're just moving along here. We're not on the literal Route 66, that America's highway, that America's road that runs from Chicago down to through St. Louis, through Springfield, down through, does it go through Flagstaff? I was in Flagstaff and I saw Route 66 go down through there, all the way down through to, I think it's San Diego is where it ends up at. But we're in the Bible, Route 66, and we're in one of the longer books in the Old Testament, the book of Ezekiel, some of his prophecies. You have two chapters today, chapter 22 and 23. So let me share with you a little bit about what you're going to read today. Chapter 22, Ezekiel 22. God lists some of the sins of Jerusalem, the city. Think about this. We hear a lot in the news about a city that has done some things that are wrong, either as a government or as people or citizens of a particular city, especially big cities like Chicago and New York and Los Angeles and some of those cities like that. You hear about some bad things. Well, this is God's city, Jerusalem. Violence, corruption, idolatry, oppression, dishonoring and disobeying God's law. And what he said was, no one was found to try to put a stop to it. The wording that's used is nobody was there to stand in the gap, to stop it. When something is happening, you hope somebody will stand up and say, stop, stop. But there wasn't anybody. And God was looking for somebody in the city to say, stop it. But nobody was doing that. The prophets were warning, but that was about it. Chapter 23, he uses an allegory. An allegory is a story that mirrors a reality. And the allegory that he used, the story that he uses, much like a parable, but a parable doesn't have names. These did two unfaithful sisters. And these two unfaithful sisters represented Samaria and Jerusalem, the capital of Israel and the capital of Judah, the capital of the northern tribes and the capital of the southern tribes. Both of those sisters, both of those cities, both of those capitals of God's people committed spiritual adultery. And God was judging them. And they ran after foreign gods. They ran after foreign leaders. They disobeyed God. They didn't want God. And God says, you're mine, you belong to me, and you're going to all these others. You're going to just run into trouble. So some lessons that we can learn from this reading today, these two chapters. One, sin corrupts every level of society when God's ways are abandoned. When you turn away from God's ways, even if you think it's the right way. I love what I think it's in Proverbs. It says, every man does that which is right in his own eyes. That's the time of the judges. But everyone does what is right in their own eyes. They think they're going the right way, but it ends up in death. And that's exactly what's happening. When you turn away from God's ways, you're going to have problems. A second lesson, God desires intercessors. People who will stand in the gap, stand and pray, stand for holiness. Sometimes it's a literal stand to say, don't do this, stop doing this, this is wrong. And God needs those people. So pray for your city, pray for your country, pray for the people around you. And then the third lesson is just realize this, idolatry of the heart. That's what God was concerned about. The actions were bad, but it came from a heart. Trusting anything else above God. Trusting, and I don't mean that we shouldn't trust our government, we shouldn't trust money, and we shouldn't do all these things. But when you trust that more than God, when you trust your government, when you trust your health, when you trust your money more than God, it's going to lead you into trouble. It leads to betrayal against God, and eventually leads to ruin, as it did the northern tribes and the southern tribes, Israel and Judah, Samaria and Jerusalem. Be faithful to God. Put your full trust. Put God first. Let all the other things find their place. Enjoy your